Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am super excited to bring you this episode because it is inspired by the thing that we as chiros and often health practitioners, like I know PTs get a lot of bad raps, I know massage therapists and acupuncturists. So if you are at all in the healthcare field, and what I would argue is true healthcare, meaning addressing the body's ability to express health, not sick care where we're just addressing symptoms. But if you're in the healthcare field, this episode is for you because what we're going to do today, inspired by some haters on different social media platforms, is we're going to talk about what research supports this idea that chiropractic and brain-based care and root cause care are actually legitimate forms of healing, legitimate forms of healthcare. And I want to dive into not only the research today, but start with a conversation of most important thing for you to think about is this. You signed up for the position and the profession that people look down upon in the first place. How many times have you as a practitioner heard chiropractors aren't real doctors, there's no medical degree, there's no doctorate associated with chiros at all, there's all this stuff. And you and I both know, if you're sitting here listening, that chiros actually get more training in physiology and more training in neurology than most MDs do. On paper alone, chiropractic training is roughly comparable to medical school. There's a residency with MDs, which there is not with chiros. Chiros do have a similar residency where we do internships with, it's called a PEAK program or a preceptorship program. You signed up for a profession that you knew people probably looked down upon. About 10% of the U.S. population uses chiropractic care regularly in the first place. And so we're way underutilized, but I think personally that we have the best answer possible to affect people's natural ability to heal itself, which I believe that God gave us. And the question then becomes, is what is the research out there that supports the fact that chiropractic care, when you take a brain-based approach, well, let's back up for a second. What is the evidence out there that says that chiropractic care affects the brain in the first place? Because one of the things that I've seen in my attempt to go more public with some of this information that parents don't know about, that families don't know about, after helping thousands of families and thousands of people inside of my practice with issues that could not be resolved anywhere else. How did chiropractic care work? Why does it work? And what does chiropractic research and research in general say about how chiropractic care affects the brain? Because the argument is that there is no research that says chiro care affects the brain. The argument is that chiropractors are quacks, that we don't have medical degrees, and I want to debunk that on this episode. So we're just going to do, this is crazy how easy it is. And people do this all the time. So this is the thing, is when people are asking for research, what you have to understand is that they're probably not going to read it. So why I'm sharing this episode is because I want you to be able to have the clinical certainty that what you're telling people, that what you're sharing with people, you know is absolutely true, that you know is going to change their lives because of what the research and the science says. So when we say that we are brain-based, here's how I know we are brain-based. And I'm just going to do, this is how simple it is. You can literally ask ChatGPT to do the research for you. Before ChatGPT existed, I'd been doing this research and following it. So one of the biggest authors, there's going to be Heidi Havoc, there's going to be Bernadette Murphy, there's going to be some other researchers. I've been following them long before ChatGPT ever existed. And so ChatGPT is just a tool, or any AI is just a tool to make the research faster. But the reality is, like, most of the people who are going to make claims against you that there's no science to back up whatever just simply isn't true. And they haven't even done the basic level of searching on their own to find this stuff. The craziest part, like before ChatGPT existed, there was Google Scholar. Before that, you would have to read medical journals. But this stuff is published, it's peer-reviewed, and I know what the argument's going to be. I'll address the arguments about the research at the end of this video, so stay tuned if you're interested. But we just got results, so let's see about what comes up. And this is what ChatGPT tells us. So this took 1 minute and 2 seconds, just so you know, for timer West. Yes, there are peer-reviewed studies showing that chiropractic spinal manipulation, which is just a chiropractic adjustment, is associated with measurable changes in brain connectivity and brain activity and brain excitability. They might be small studies, but they're still there, and they're published in peer-reviewed journals that, like, PubMed is not a small publication. Nature is not a small publication. Science is not a small publication. So here's what the studies say. Frontiers in Neurology. So this is a 2025 study. So this is brand new. brain functional changes following spinal manipulation. So they looked at 169 articles and 10 studies that use functional MRIs, PET scans, EEGs, things that would actually measure the brain. And so they found that spinal manipulation therapy produced significant changes in brain activity and connectivity. So that right there. So this is a scope review of brain function in chiropractic care, and definitively through 169 articles and 10 studies, what they found is that there is definitive evidence to say that spinal adjustments affect the brain. So any argument, again, and this doesn't even get into the actual studies themselves yet, this is just getting at what is out there. And the reality is this, is that for sure, 100%, without question, chiropractic care affects connectivity in the brain. There are more studies that go into childhood development. There are more studies that go into other pieces, and that's what I want to talk about with you just briefly in some of this conversation. The biggest researcher, her name is Heidi Havoc. My favorite study that she's done, she just actually did this one. So this was published in 2024 in Brain Sciences, and what she found is this, is that they use EEG, TMS, SEP, and functional MRIs, and what they found is that there's altered brain activity after adjustments, and they did double-blinded, so they did sham adjustments as well, in the prefrontal cortex and the cerebellum and the sensorimotor cortex and the basal ganglia. So this builds the case that an effect on the brain is present when we adjust joints of the spine. And interestingly about this study and others is she talks about the N30 amplitude, and she also talks about the speed of the adjustment matters, but that's in a different study. So what this study with Bernadette Murphy and Heidi Havoc in 2012, what it suggests is that when there is improper mobility in the joints of the spine, that alters sensoromotor integration, which means the way the brain interprets movement that is happening in the body. And if that integration of sensoromotor input is altered, that alters the response that the brain's going to have back to the rest of the body. So what does this mean? Is that when we adjust the spine, we can change what happens in the brain, and there's more studies coming out every day to support this claim. This is by Yang, and it was in 2022. This is published in the Neuropsychiatric Disease and Treatment Journal, and what they found is that people with chronic low back pain received a series of adjustments, and what they found is that the adjustments modulate brain regions involved in pain processing and default mode networks. So again, we're talking about brain regions. We're not talking about the pain at the side of pain, but we're talking about the brain. There are studies on PET scans. There are some studies on lumbar disc herniations. The list could go on and on and on. They're looking at EEGs. They're looking at SEPs. They're looking at TMS.
For all of the research, there's new scientific studies coming out all the time. So does anything ever come out that shakes your resolve?
There's not anything that shakes my resolve, because I see what research continues to point to is that we do affect how the brain processes information. And the only thing that could even come close to shaking my resolve is that some people would argue that the sample sizes in these studies are small, or that some of the studies, this is an argument, and when we talk about the comments and the haters, the commentary that sample sizes are small, or there's no double-blind clinical trials, blah, 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 whatever they say. But man, the reality is there's no again, we could chat GPT and we could just ask, it doesn't take a lot of heavy knowledge to just look and see what research is out there, but there's no double-blind placebo studies on the effectiveness of a seatbelt. And so that argument that there's no double-blind studies, I feel like people try to apply it to the things that they want to apply it to and then ignore it for the things that don't work for the sake of their argument. But the reality is that there's plenty of science that points to the fact that we're affecting the brain. Brain-based chiropractic care is real. The results that I see with my clients inside of my practice are real. And the question I would have, if someone is sitting here and they're adamantly hating on what we do, which they have no idea what we do. They see none of the testing that we do. They see none of the analysis that we do. They've seen none of the adjusting that we do. They've seen none of the results that we get with the clients that we have inside of our practice do. Why would someone be so quick to hate on something that has literally changed thousands of people's lives.
Are there any examples of professional sport athletes having chiropractors?
100%, dude. Look at Tom Brady. Look at Tiger Woods. Look at John Stockton. Is in a so the Utah Jazz looked at, I don't think this is a published study, but the Utah Jazz had a team chiropractor when John Stockton and they were like in their championship runs. Least amount of injuries that team, that professional sports team, and all the NBA had ever had when they had this specific chiro on staff. And so, when we talk about injury prevention, it's like, well, it could have just been a coincidence. Like, no, because there was higher level of brain function, which we know all the research supports. Tom Brady openly talks about the fact that chiropractic care is an integral part of what he does. Tiger Woods talked about the same thing. And he's like, I don't think I would have been able to perfect my swing if it weren't for chiropractic care. So yes, they're athletes, but what the stories that don't get told are the stories that are in like the documentary that we did in our office where we shared the stories of these families and the testimonials of transformation, or, the kiddo that we take care of who had 5,000 seizures predisposed to them through a genetic condition called CDKL5 and then goes literally hundreds of days under our care without having seizures at all for the first time ever in her life. And so, no, there's no double-blind placebo study, but for that family, like, it's life-changing. So anyone to sit and like try to get people to not do something that could change their lives, like, I see these families who have been on medication. I see these families who have tried every single thing under the sun and felt like it was hopeless for them. And the level of blatant, outright disregard for the fact that there's plenty of research out there to support this idea that chiropractic care done very specifically. I think there are chiros who don't do it well. I'm not here to hate on them. What I'm here to do is literally empower families and empower people to find practitioners who are going to address the root cause, which often lies in their brain, and do things that are in line with the way God designed our body to heal. There is a segment of the population who very clearly understands that chiropractic care is for more than neck pain, back pain, and headaches. And I think that the population at large, including all the haters, get frustrated when we talk about the brain, but they forget, that like they're these neurologists that understand neurology that forget feed-forward activation into the central nervous system from proprioceptors. So I think where people get hung up and they stay awake at night is that yes, chiro care can help with neck pain, back pain, headaches, but it can also allow somebody to express 100%, I would argue, of their genetic potential. And I've seen other studies by immunologists that would suggest the same exact thing. And so we get into this weird kind of place where I think a lot of the population is frustrated because chiro is not supposed to be anything other than neck pain, back pain, headaches. And I stay awake at night wondering, like, why are people so hesitant to do something that has the cheapest malpractice insurance on the planet because it's so not dangerous with hardly any side effects, but they're so quick to go to something that has a ton of side effects that is not physiologically compatible with their bodies. Dude, I'm not trying to tell people not to take medication. I think there's a time and a place for it. What I can say from the families that I've taken care of, I sat with a mom yesterday and she's like, I swear to you that the development of my child is different than the kids that he is surrounded by. And the only thing that we do different, and she's like, I tell all these moms this, is that he gets adjusted since he was 12 days old. I don't care how much research is out there to support or not support that, because that mom knows. How many moms I've seen who, when they see transformation in their kids, or they see transformation in their spouses, or they see transformation in their own lives, like, they're case studies, but case studies are valid, in my humble opinion. And chiros, I think, get stuck in this place where they're like, well, I have to get people with neck pain, back pain, headaches, and then we can talk about wellness. So this gets into a philosophical conversation of the difference between pathogenesis and salutogenesis. So Pathogenesis, meaning it means I'm looking for pathology. I'm looking at what creates sickness within the body. Salutogenesis is the opposite of that. It's saying what creates health within the body. And I think that if we're going down the rabbit hole of like, well, what causes pain? And then let's just go chase chiropractic for back pain because we adjust the back. But the only reason that we adjust the back is because that's what affects the brain. And the brain is where the pain centers are housed. And we know that through the research. So the thing that keeps people up at night is I want to practice in a salutogenic approach, but I have everybody else in the world telling me that I should practice in a pathogenic approach because that's what everybody else does and that's what everybody else knows. And they don't have the certainty in what the research says. And I would even get to a point where I'm like, who cares what the research says? Again, if I cared what the research said, I may not put my daughter in a seatbelt because there's no double-blind studies that support that there's an effectiveness of the seatbelt. Do we know that there is 100% for sure? I would be willing. I'm going to go in ChatGPT and do this right now, bro. We're going to take a little sidebar. There are no double-blind, placebo-controlled trials for heart transplantation. It's essentially impossible and unethical to ever do. You can't placebo a heart transplant. You can't blind the clinicians. You can't randomize control trial it. So again, I just get back to like a neurosurgeon or an MD is going to be like heart transplant. Like, yeah, dude, that's valid science. The CDC just published on their website that we can no longer claim that vaccines do not cause autism because the science is never settled because they never did the science. And here's the interesting part. Just like with the heart transplant or just like with the seatbelt, you can't double blind those studies because there's an ethical piece to it. So I don't know why it's okay in one place, in a place that's arguably the biggest point of tension in the medical industry between like a pathogenic and salutogenic approach, why that's okay. We can turn the cheek on that, but we can't on something that is legitimately helping people. So effectiveness of heart transplant is supported by massive, consistent observational evidence and survival data. That's really, really interesting because I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of data out there that says people under regular chiropractic care, 72% less hospitalizations, fewer sickness, less injury. The list could go on and on and on. But again, it's like, so like heart transplant observational data, that's fine. We can operate on somebody, put them under, take their heart out, put a new heart in all day long. But to adjust someone to affect their brain, for some reason, that is just a danger to the entire world. Like we're putting people at risk. And oh my gosh, 911 emergency, that I would actually help someone who hasn't had any help anywhere else. We have case studies, all kinds of case studies. I have thousands of case studies in my practice of people who've had results, yet somehow, because we don't have randomized double placebo controlled trials, we're not safe and effective, or we're not scientific, or there's no research, or whatever the case is, even though it's just not true. Okay, let me go to this other. All right. So very top, this was updated November 19th, 2025. The claim that vaccines do not cause autism, in quotes, this is straight from the CDC's website. Wes, you can post this, is not an evidence-based claim because studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism. Mic drop. Crazy. Studies supporting a link have been ignored by health authorities, including the CDC, and the HHS has launched a comprehensive assessment of causes of autism, including investigations of plausible biologic mechanisms and potential causal links. So it goes on, but those are the key points of the study, or not of the study, but of the CDC statement right there at the very top on autism and vaccines. So why do I share that? I share it because the same people who would sit out there and say, the science is settled, it was never settled because it was never done. And the opposite is true for chiropractic. And everybody asks for the research, but no one wants to go do it. And this is the problem that I see is people expect the practitioner to like prove and support the data, but like they don't have data. I would love for someone to show me where it says chiropractic is safe and or unsafe and ineffective. There is none, but that's just not how it works. So if you're a practitioner and you're listening to this, you're watching, this would be my encouragement to you. It is all there to support that what you do is safe, that it's effective. You have the case studies to prove it. We have small sample size studies that are peer reviewed, that are there in journals outside of chiropractic literature that say what we do works, that it affects the brain, and it can absolutely transform somebody's life. Regardless of what the haters on your Instagram or your TikTok or your Facebook say, we affect the brain, and will continue to do so. If you're looking to level up your skills to be able to measure the brain and do an analysis to figure out how you adjust someone to affect specific parts of the brain, that would be my charge for you, is to message me on Instagram. I can get you more info on exactly how we do our tests in the office, what they measure, and then what it means as well. So if you got some value out of this, share it up with somebody who needs to hear it, and I will look forward to hearing you guys next week. Peace.